All right, time is 6 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and call the March District 4 Rec Board meeting to order. We'll go ahead and get started. Please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Previously sent out the agenda for this meeting. Recently. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for today?
Second.
And then she also sent out the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? If you guys had a chance to review those. I'll make a motion. Page, second.
Second.
Thanks.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
All right, start with staff reports. Fire up first. There must be a fire. They are not here. All right. They're okay. We'll move on with to PD.
Hello, everybody. I think I met most of you, one point or another. I'm Anthony Soto with the Wichita Police Department team. I'm out of the West Bureau. I brought some stats for you guys. Shoplifting in the last 30 to 90 days is down 33%, which is awesome. We've had 3 more auto thefts in the last 30 days compared to the prior 30 days before that. Persons crimes, they were only up 2 in the last 30 days, and both of them were DV related, so they're isolated incidents for obviously. We do have Second Chance Thursday coming up on March 13th. And forgive me, I was going to bring a flyer, but I was on a different call before I got here. So, but if anyone wants that information, I can. So, I didn't bring a whole lot tonight. That's all I got.
Where's the Second Chance going to be hosted at?
I'll find out. I'll make sure you guys have it.
Any questions from staff? Any questions from public? You're good. All right. Thank you.
Y'all have a great night.
As well.
Oh, Clement, yeah.
We're moving on to library.
I'm Steve Hammerstein. I'm the library director at the Alfred Branch Library. This is branch manager. We had 2,714 people come in the library, which is down 1,605 from last year. And we circulated 4,471 items this year, down 2,053. You don't know, we're under remodel. So us getting that many people in the library in our little meeting room is pretty good, I think. Some of the other branches, 2 remodeled Wichita Public Library branches are set to reopen to the public in March. The Angela Northeast branch officially reopens Monday, March 17th, and the Westlake branch library officially reopens the following Monday, March 24th. Plans for grand reopening celebrations are in the works for later in the spring. Dates for each will be communicated in coming weeks. Beginning March 5th and until the branch opens to the public, drive-through services at the remodeled Westlake branch library will be offered at reduced hours for home pickups and returns only. Regular hours will resume on March 24th. Construction within the library system will continue with the Rockwell Branch Library closing to the public in March for its next phase of remodeling. The last day of service at Rockwell will be Sunday, March 16th, and is expected to remain closed through the fall of 2025. While Rockwell is closed, hours will increase at Angelou Branch to ensure residents in Northeast Wichita have a full library service. Angelou's updated hours will be Monday through Thursday, 10 to 8, Friday and Saturday, 10 to 6, Sundays, 1 to 5. And libraries are all closed during the summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So the Wichita Public Library launches its NEA Big Read program, exploring Sitting Pretty, the view from my ordinary, resilient, disabled body by Rebecca Tozig, with a kickoff at 6:30 p.m. on Friday, March 14th at the Advanced Learning Library. You can join us for celebration with a variety of entertainment and a free copy of the book while supplies last. The NEA Big Read Wichita is presented in partnership with Envision, the Kansas Leadership Center, and Cedar County Department of Aging and Disabilities. From March 14th through the April 26th, our community will celebrate with a full calendar of events, including panels, discussion, art-based events, and more. For a complete list, visit wichitaBigRead.org. And due to weather closures last month, the Amplify 365, a year-long series honoring Black culture. The keynote presentation by Dr. Latasha Kelly, which was originally scheduled in February, was postponed, and the rescheduled date is Wednesday, March 12th from 6 to 7 p.m. There are plenty of opportunities to keep kids and teens entertained at the library during spring break, March 14th through the 22nd. And for a full calendar of those events, visit wichitaLibrary.org/events. Getting back to Alfred, the story time continues down to Machinist Union. It's been well received by the parents and kids, and then also by the Machinist Union. They're one group to work with. Our current state, even in our current state of remodel, we found room to host the will be a voting place. So we made it work somehow. So we did get that taken care of for the USD 259 bond election. And other than that, the remodel is going well. We should be on track to open back open on June 1st. The few hiccups we've had are mostly roof leaks and then mold in the outside wall. And so once we get that all finished, then we start to paint the new rooms, and then they're going to get parked in once they get the mold. So that's everything I have. Any questions?
Any questions from staff? Public? No, there's none. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Seen that fire just got in. You guys are up.
Go ahead. Apologize for being late, ran into the flying train over there.
If you miss one.
I'm Lieutenant Gifford, working over at Station 22, firefighter Brock Hallmark. Be kind of short and sweet. You guys are typically our district, I believe, just got moved tonight. All right. So I've got a few numbers for you, but I don't have all the details for your district. We just kind of wanted to remind everybody, you know, political safety stuff. The smoke detectors, change your batteries, we can change your clocks. Close when you doze. Make sure, especially with your youngins, when you're sleeping, make sure you shut that door. It makes a huge difference. As far as the numbers, you guys did have 2 fires in your district. One is undetermined and one was under investigation. I believe they were a house fire, the 9200 block of Bellevue is a fire in the basement. I believe that's the one under, the other one was a shed fire, and that had squatters involved. I believe that's the one that's undetermined. Not a lot you can do about that, just kind of be aware around. Think anything else? I think that's all we got. Apologize for being late.
No, no worries. Any
Any
questions?
questions?
Question from public?
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, moving on, we have our quarterly update from Public Works Utilities, City Engineer Paul.
Yes, Paul Johnson, city engineer, give you a quarterly update for District 4. We have multiple projects under construction on West Street. Heritage Pawnee's been under construction for a while. We have begun construction. There are 2 projects further south on West Street from what will be I-235 to 47th Street. It's currently under construction between 47th Street to MacArthur. And it is 1 lane northbound at this time. That project began in January and is expected to be completed in 2026. The next construction between I-235 and MacArthur. We had the south project has to go first to get some drainage structures in that. So we plan to begin that project here in a couple of months. Scrolling down, the pavement preservation programs for 2024 is wrapping up. We are beginning to open bids on the 2025 program. I believe this is sent out to you, so I won't dwell on that too much. A couple other projects I wanted to highlight was the Keeler Lake, Bridgewater Bay, K-42 access. That has been advertised. We were to open bids last Friday. However, during the pre-construction meeting, we got numerous questions from the contractors. So we deferred that until March 7th. So this coming Friday, we'll open bids on that. The Maple Street project from 135th to 167th Street. Our consultant that we contracted with, MKC, has developed concepts for the 2 miles of roadway. We have reviewed those internally as staff. We had a few changes that we wanted them to address prior to presenting to this board, as well as District 5 Advisory Board. And we are hoping to get out to those boards, back to these boards in April, to present those concepts for your consideration. The West Kellogg project, 111th to 135th Street, that's, we were hoping to have a PEC under contract for design last year. However, due to some KDOT funding, we are putting that on hold for a period of time. And the other project I wanted to highlight was the multimodal facility, or the hub down being constructed near Riverfront Stadium. They are bringing footings and columns out of the ground right now, if you have not driven by. So that work is progressing along rather nicely. There is a website there that there's a camera installed on the stadium. Look in the construction site, so you can go into that and you can check the progress of that. And that project is to be completed in April of 2026. That is my update on the public works projects.
Any questions from staff?
Yes, sir.
The project that's coming on Main and Market downtown,
Yes.
going from 1-way to 2-way, how long is that projected for?
So we are working on, Emporia will be converted to 2-way tomorrow morning, open to traffic there north of Central to Murdoch. And then the following week, we will be working on Topeka Street. And then Main and Market will follow most likely after the NCAA tournament. So probably get some temporary markings down, get the signals up, converted, but we will still have an overlay project to do when we get the weather decent and the contractor. Asphalt companies get the oil and stuff, they can produce asphalt. So my guess is probably won't start until April.
And do you know about how long that should take?
It should go pretty quick once they get the striping down. They've got the traffic signal poles and equipment installed, to my knowledge. So we'll be unbagging the signals and however long that takes, but it should be pretty quick.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Is First and Second Street involved with that?
No, they will remain 1-way. It's Main Market, Topeka, Emporia. Some of those have been converted partway from Kellogg to Murdoch, and then English Street from Main to.
Questions from public?
Are we gonna bring those 2-way streets down to Pawnee?
We don't have plans for that at this time.
Okay. And another one on West Street, is there any plans for West Street south of Pawnee?
It's not, no.
Any other questions? All right, so there's nothing. We're good.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I will roll into the drought. And then Gary Jensen was District 5's covering for me in the drought, so I'm kind of in favor here, so. All right. Okay, you can move on, there you go. So, Wichita has, raw water, has two main sources. 55 to 60% of it comes from Cheney Reservoir, which is surface water. And the remaining, comes from the Equus beds of well-filled, groundwater. There's been questions about El Dorado being a viable source, and it is not. Folks ask about this often. El Dorado Lake would not have water available when we need it most due to it's still in, it's still served by a smaller basin, so it doesn't fill up as fast. I know when you drive by, looks like they have plenty of water. They had the recent rains during the summer that the Cheney Basin did not. Wichita provides water to approximately 500,000 residents. That includes 150,000 plus residential and commercial customers. Also included is 11 wholesale customers: Bel Air, Benton, Bentley, Derby, Keachai, Park City, Rose Hill, and Valley Center, as well as some rural water districts. The city will take ownership of the new plant in April. We are working through plans to bring it online, and at some point, we'll be able to treat a blend with more groundwater, providing us more flexibility in the future. The staff is recommending that the current treatment plant to be utilized as emergency backup, and we will be presenting that to City Council later this month for further discussion. I want to also mention that Derby, as well as Valley Center, Derby has considerable water rights as we provide water to them. However, they are looking at building their own plant in a few years, as well as Valley Center is anticipating to have a new plant online in 2 years. So we'll continue to work with them as they get those plants online. So Derby has quite a bit, they ship quite a bit of water down to them, so that will definitely help. Moving on to the next slide, the Cheney pool condition. As of March 2nd, the water level is 7.5 feet below normal pool. Therefore, stage 2 watering restrictions remain in place and are expected to remain in place through all of 2025. In spite of the 600,000 acre watershed for Cheney, precipitation is nearly 2 feet below normal since 2022. And the USGS monitors inflow, and the inflow has been lowest in almost 60 years, which is when Cheney was built. And even if we get some big spring rains coming out of the drought, it's still based on a 12-month moving average. And right now, Cheney is about 63% at pool elevation. So the November rains had helped. I think Cheney Lake was about 8.5 feet below normal pool elevation, so that went up about a foot. However, the recent snow that we had equates to about a ½ inch rains here. Moving on to the next slide. Cheney sediment and dam repair. Public often asks about dredging Cheney. Historic watershed protection efforts by the city and others have resulted in minimal sedimentation. Charts from Kansas Bathymetric study in 2017, and it shows just over 5% capacity loss for Cheney Reservoir, which is exceptional. Dredging is extremely expensive and provides a little added capacity. One of the silver linings through this drought is that we have the ability to make repairs to the dam, which is over 2 miles long, and work is currently underway with the current water level at 1414.08, which is nearly a foot below the start of repair of 1415. So if we do get a lot of rain, or we do have a separation clause in the contract, In case of inflow prior to completion, we will not let water out. So if we do get rain, it gets up above, so we can't make repairs, we will not let water out. Next slide. The governor's drought declaration, the governor declares drought emergency. And staff has worked with the Kansas Water Office to ensure the governor's drought declaration remains accurate. As you can see, we are 3 counties in red. The emergency declaration for our area could lead to state and federal support to continue navigating through the droughts. We'll continue to work with them. Next slide. The drought response, this was codified by the city post 2011 through 2013 drought. As we can't control the weather, the plan focuses on discretionary seasonal water use, which is primarily outdoor irrigation. Plan is not meant to stabilize Chile, but designed to prolong public water supply through an extended drought. And thus far, it's working. There are exemptions for businesses that generate their core economic activity from water usage, such as car washes, nursery sauce companies, and hand watering of food gardens is also exempt. Car washes do filter and recycle their water, so that does help. Moving on to the next slide, the drought responsive plan. Stage 1 was activated in January 2023. As you know, stage 2 was activated in August 5th of 2024, and we are still within that. And as I mentioned before, still anticipate to be in that throughout the end of the year. In order to come out of the drought, we will require the same 12-month moving average to be met. Right now, we're between, as I mentioned, 50 and 69%. So stage 2 for approximately 63%. Stage 3, if we get to that point, will have significant impact on businesses. So we want to do all that we can to avoid that. Stage 3 also prohibits all outdoor watering. Next slide. Stage 2, I think most of you may have seen this map. This is when folks can water, depending on what quadrant they are in. Community-wide collaborative effort is not to be punitive, but we will continue to issue warnings and penalties as needed. We need to continue changing habits now for future. So I get results in the last half of 2024. And these water restrictions also apply to our wholesale company customers, as I mentioned before. And they have submitted plans that we have approved as well. Next slide. This information is on the website. To the left of that, we have information regarding the drought update. There in the center, this is where I mentioned the Pini level 12-month average at 63%. There's also information regarding irrigation, how you can save water, internal conservation plan, which is in place, lawn care, etc. And we do have the water conservation rebate program that City Council approved here. I think it was last week or the week before. So, planning for the future. Move on to the next slide. The aquifer storage and recovery, that is still in place. We continue to operate that when the Little Ark River is high enough. The aqueous beds is currently healthy at 90%, but as we get rain and the Little Ark Kansas River is high enough, we continue to take water out of the river, treat it, and put it down in the aqueous beds. Next slide. Well field and aqueous bed projects are project is under design to construct 2 new recharge basins for the ASR facility. Recharge basins will allow for enhanced artificial recharge and will provide capacity for recovery following prolonged drought. The basins will also enhance recharge capabilities. bring higher aquifer conditions and help to keep the aquifer topped off. These projects are targeted to be completed in late 2025. Next slide. And the Wichita Water Works, the new facility will eventually enable flexibility during drought. We will, with the new plant, we will, it will allow us to take more water out of the groundwater as time goes on. We are, as I mentioned before, the new plant will become online spring of 2025, and we will operate both plants through 2025. The performance, yeah. Next slide, please. Other thing that we have going on, this is a little bit new. We have a reuse feasibility study, which will look at direct potable reuse. Non-potable industrial reuse is already in place from plant 2 to Spirit, which is approximately $1 million gallons per day. We have the water rights to nearly 30 million gallons of treated effluent. I'll get into a little bit more on the next slide of that. Staff is working to revise a permit for the water center where we are here tonight that would allow contractors and landscapers to utilize effluent from the outdoor business for outdoor business purposes at no cost. So currently our park department already take water from the water center here and use it for other purposes. We want to expand that to other contractors and or landscaping companies that they will be able to utilize this water for other purposes than just pumping it into the rivers. We do have, next slide, please. So this really takes, you know, the thought is to, or sewer treatment plants take that effluent, filter it through to eventually get to distribution so that we can basically from toilet to tap. So now that might have an impact factor, but I believe this will work. The average daily non-drought northern region is 50 million gallons per day. We're having the consultant look at this. We've completed consultant selections who will be going to city council for that, but we believe that we could deliver half of that to ourselves by direct potable reuse and provide a sustainable and resilient water supply for generations. So we're excited to get that work started and see what will come of it. As I mentioned before, the reuse study consultant will be on board soon, and that effort will require developing state regulations and identifying potential funding sources for advanced treatment. The next slide, please. And then we continue to work with the Wichita Building Association. We will continue to have those discussions with them through 2025. And with our desire to move away from fescue as the default, fescue lawns for the default new development, review our landscape ordinance requirements, encourage / mandate xeriscape, and evaluate reuse opportunities in development. So you can see the lower picture with the area pond. Is it feasible to use that to irrigate the lawns within the area? So homeowners association covenants are developed under state law, but are not immune to city ordinances. So we can make it more strict. We are working closely with HOA management and numerous HOAs to encourage requirements. We will do the same again as we head into the spring. So next slide, a few things, and I'm about done. What other cities might be doing. City of Hayes, washing down hard surfaces is not allowed, driveways, parking lots, et cetera, that is year round. Water is not to escape the property if possible. I run it down sidewalk from irrigation. And then also the city of Oklahoma City. They have the water, on certain days, which your address is, we need water, so other communities are doing it. We will, as staff, continue to evaluate future considerations with city council for long-term resiliency. And next slide, please. So the next steps. Stage 2, as I said, will remain in place. Throughout 2025. I mentioned the KSR and Wellfield, improvements in 2025. Wichita Water Works, sole use at the end of 2025, the new plant. RFP, consultant selected for the reuse study, anticipating council's approval April 1st. Dave worked with Lava and develop recommended changes to conservation requirements in perpetuity. And that is what I have. Do you have any questions?
I have a real quick one. I drive by the water plant pretty frequently, and I've been noticing there's 2 outtake
Yes.
things up, and there's water running into the big ditch. What is that about?
That is part of getting the new plant up and going. So we're running water through it.
Priming the pump.
Yes, in essence, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's the city's stance on the splash pads in the pools?
As far as,
You know, operate them, not operate them?
I don't know that we would. Splash pads, I'd have to get with the park department. I don't know the answer to that. It seems like we had, I don't know that we had those running last year.
They were,
Pools.
the splash pads were
They
working.
did Buffalo
So it's
Pond.
okay for me to fill my pool this year?
And then invite people, yes.
I think they reuse the splash pad water.
Because I have an above ground pool and I drain it just below and then every year I clean it and refill it. That's 15,000 gallons. Is that a warning or
No,
a fine?
no,
or-
it's just water, no.
Well,
You'll have to pay for that amount.
Right,
That's-
right,
Yeah, I get the bill. I get the
Right,
bill. It's
yeah.
quite a bill.
Right. No,
You know, it's a once a year thing.
Right, yeah, I understand. I've got a pool myself, but I'm in the World Water District, so yes,
Good. Any other questions from staff? Public?
Two quick questions, and you may not know because you're not here, and that's okay. We've been trying to use honey instead of vinegar on fines. Do we actually have a tally? Have we had to do any enforcement at all with fines?
Well, I don't know that I have a tally for you, Vincent, but we have written warnings, because part of my staff gone out and put those out there. I don't know if we actually wrote tickets, but I'd have to find that out for you. But
Fair
I do know that we had sent out warnings.
Second question, with Valley Center and Derby coming online, is there a possibility of the pipe that currently goes to them could come from them in an emergency? We could think ahead and say, hey, if there were something where you got water and have an excess, that we could purchase it from you. Just something to think about, trying to future-proof.
Right. I don't know that they'd have that, but I understand what you're saying.
Any other questions? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Moving on to public agenda, we have Laura Rainwater with the Central County Elections.
Good evening. It is weird being back here. Recognize a few faces. Thank you for inviting me, Brooke. So we've had a few elections. We had the presidential election back in November. I don't know if you guys are interested in that statistics, but I'll share those in a minute. Approximately
341,495 registered voters are in Sedgwick County as of March 1st. There are 138,300 Republicans, 85,500 Democrats, 4,800 Libertarians. We have 2 new parties in the state of Kansas this last year. I don't know if you guys heard about those, but No Labels has 878. United Kansas has 193. And a third of all voters in Sedgwick County are unaffiliated. That amounts to 111,700. If you're interested in District 4, you have 40,197 registered voters, and this is as of March 1st. 15,604 are Republican, 9,285 are Democrats, 643 are Libertarians, 139 are No Labels, 29 are United Kansas, and 14,497 are unaffiliated. This past year, we opened up 27 new, or not 27, 23 maybe, new polling sites. And the idea was we wanted to reduce total voter registration numbers for that presidential election, anticipating high voter turnout. What happened in the presidential election, for the first time ever, early voting exceeded election day voting, which is a good thing, but you probably heard we had 1.5 and 2-hour waits. For the first time ever, we opened up 2 satellite locations in addition to the election office for early voting, and they saw lines every single day for the presidential election. We had 0 complaints about the wait time, so people were excited to be able to vote. But yes, early voting exceeded election day by over 15,000 votes, which is unheard of. And that was statewide. It didn't just happen here. People were ready to vote. A big question I get asked a lot is about election security. So back in 2022, Secretary Schwab, who appoints me, introduced a lot of new security enhancements. And I will say that all of our voting equipment is certified by the Election Assistance Commission. None of it is tied to the internet. That is a big misinformation that is out there. Statutory Kansas law, we cannot have any of our voting equipment tied to the internet whatsoever. We have voter ID law. We were one of the first states to have voter ID law, and now there's 36 that have a voter ID law. We also are required to do a post-election audit for every primary and general election. Doesn't happen with special elections, but those are random audits where we literally draw precincts and races out of a hat. We have no idea what's going to be drawn, and I've never had an audit come back different than what the election day results were. And also, a big misinformation, all ballots are paper ballots. People say, oh, I want a paper ballot. Well, you're going to get a paper ballot either way. You can either manually mark your paper ballot, or you can go to a ballot marking device. That is a printer for what you select, and it will print you a paper ballot for you to verify that you select what you selected, because sometimes people have fat fingers and they poke a spot on the screen to make sure that the selections are what you chose. In this last presidential election, we had kind of a disappointing 63% turnout in 2024. In 2020, it was a 70% turnout, and in 2016, it was a 66% turnout. So yes, it was down quite a bit. I was hoping we'd hit 70 or 75%, because usually you can take your early voting numbers along with your mail ballot numbers and double that percentage. And had we done that, we would have been at over 75%. But because we saw early voting exceed election day, we didn't get to those numbers. We had an election this last week, USD 259. Thank you for working the polls. That was 60% of our county. We have 4 special elections coming up. I was in Topeka today testifying on a Senate bill, trying to limit when special elections can occur. Sedgwick County, we average 3 to 5 special elections every year. in the last 10 years, we've had well over 30 special elections. Jurisdictions can call for a special election pretty much anytime between January and June. After June, there's a 45-day window around your primary and general election that special elections can't be called. So really that takes you from mid-June to mid-December where special elections cannot occur. They're trying to clean that up a bit because some jurisdictions have read that you could have it after the primary or general. In fact, after being on the job 5 months as election commissioner, my first year back in 23, we did have a special election 3 weeks after the primary. Why that special question didn't go on the primary and save taxpayer money, I don't know. But they're trying to clean that up in Kansas statute. Excuse me. So we will have the results. Final canvass of the USD 259 election is this Thursday. It's an open meeting at 9 a.m. That is the initial canvass. We have just roughly about 600 provisional ballots to consider. You've probably heard there's a 294 vote difference right now. It was a very close election. The no votes exceeded the yes votes by 294. So we will present the provisional ballots to the Board of Canvassers, which is also our county commission. They act as the Board of Canvassers at 9 o'clock Thursday morning. All are welcome. And they will consider which provisional ballots are valid and which are not. Then we will go tabulate those. Most of those provisional ballots will be manual tallies because it's people that showed up at the wrong polling site. That's another challenge of a special election. Not all polling sites are open for special election, and anytime we have to change somebody's polling site, they show up at the wrong ones. So a lot of those provisional ballots are wrong polling sites, and those are all manual tallies. So I anticipate final canvass sometime Friday afternoon so that we can put this to bed by the weekend, but that's up to the Board of Canvassers. How can you help? I got started on elections back in 2020 when Tabitha, who's a dear friend, came down with cancer. And she put a plea out to her friends that the best way you can support me is become an election worker. I can't be out recruiting. I got addicted to it. It's a civil service to our country. I took great pride in it. I'm not gonna lie, it's a long day. June can attest. But as of this year, before this year, Sedgwick County was the only county in Kansas, with the exception of Butler, because they mirrored Sedgwick County so they wouldn't confuse their voters, that opened at 6 a.m. All other counties are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So starting with this last election, the USD 259 election, our polls are going to be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That is for every election, with one exception, the presidential election. Once every 4 years, we will open at 6 a.m. because that's such a high turnout election. So I beg you, if you've not done it, June can attest, it is a very fun day. Give it a try, become an election worker. There is no, it's the foundation of our country. Without our elections, we wouldn't be able to live in such a great country that we have. So give it a try and see what you think. You can go to our website, sedgwickcounty.org/elections. Right there on the landing page, it says become an election worker. And I encourage you, we have a primary and a general this year. Not everybody will have primaries. It kind of depends on how many candidates file for office, but the general we'll need anywhere from 600 to 800 election workers. So happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Question comes from staff. How's the new facility coming?
Glad you asked. They are set to close on that new facility before June 2nd. And once they do, because of all these elections we have, they'll have to do security enhancements, obviously, to the facility. They bought the Waltons, the county bought the Waltons building, which is out in the Comatera Office Park. It is a beautiful facility, but obviously we will need to do some security upgrades to it. So I'm anticipating we'll probably move after Thanksgiving, after the general election. Just because I don't want to, even if they could get it done between the primary and general, that's such a small window. I don't want anything to go wrong, so I would just prefer to wait. Yeah.
Well, just to echo what you said, I've done election work before. It's fun.
It is.
It's a long day.
It is.
I would have done it for free, but I didn't expect a check, honestly. No, it's a lot of fun, so I encourage everyone here to do it if you guys have a chance to. And then Laura, thank you for coming out here. I know it's tough work and we appreciate it. I'll be able to rest on those days, but
Yeah,
No,
no,
we
it
appreciate it.
is fun. It is very rewarding work. It really is. I've never worked so hard in my life. It's very complex. Coming from being a supervising judge to this side and all the different laws, statutes, regulations that run elections, it's complex, but it's very worth it and very rewarding. I've learned a lot.
oh, forgot to ask, any questions from public?
Yes, did you say the yes exceeded the no by 294, or
No.
was the other way around? Okay, that's what I thought, I wasn't sure.
If I did, I apologize. No, the no votes are leading by 294
That's what I,
votes.
okay.
All
thank you.
mail ballots are in. We're not accepting any more. So the results are not gonna change until the final.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You bet. That's it. You don't have any questions for me? You always have questions.
Just thank you for doing.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, moving on to the off agenda items. This is the time where if anyone did not schedule or request to speak before this meeting, you may do so at this time. Is there anyone present? All right, moving on to Zoom, new business. We have zoning, 2025-02.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Reese with the planning staff here today to talk about zone 2025 project 02. So for this case, the applicant is requesting a zone change. It's currently zoned limited commercial, and they're looking to go to central business district. This is a 0.07. Yeah, that is that's not a typo. 0.07 acre property, and this is located at the southeast corner of West Douglas and South Oak Streets. It's currently developed with a vacant office building constructed in 1944. And the applicant is requesting the zone change to eliminate some of the parking requirements associated with redevelopment, as well as some of the setback requirements. The subject building is considered non-conforming by today's development standards because it doesn't meet the setback requirements. It was built in 1944 before a lot of our current setback standards. As you can see, it's right up against the street, both on Douglas and on Oak Street. So the change of use that may trigger the current setback requirements. So then, in order to be in compliance, they could file for a variance for the parking requirements, for the setback requirements, or they can move forward with the zone change. Central Business District, it allows 0-foot setbacks, and it doesn't have an off-street parking requirement. So this went through the Delano design review because this is located within the Delano overlay. Basically, all that they're proposing, at least on the exterior, we don't review the interior. What they're proposing on the exterior is replacing some of the non-original windows first, and then there's a set of very scary looking stairs in the back. So they're looking to redesign those so that they're fire code compliant. And so those changes were approved by the Delano Design Review Committee. So as I mentioned earlier, as I touched upon earlier, this is in the Delano neighborhood. It was initially developed in the 1870s, redeveloped in the 1900s when they didn't have off-street parking and minimum setback requirements. And then the applicant also intends to redevelop this site as a microbrewery as part of the CASOs. And so microbrewery is not a permitted use within the LC zoning district. And so its redevelopment may put it out of compliance. So I have a table that's listed in your staff report here that gives you an idea of the difference in development standards between limited commercial, which is what it's zoned now, and what they're proposing central business district. If we could just go really quickly, I want to show the zoning map. I'm going to go to it again, but I can show it just now. It's two more. Yep. So everything that you see in light blue here is already zoned central business district. So just to give you guys an idea.
That's the Picasso, the blue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So let's skip ahead here to some of the conformance to plans and policies when we look at the community investments plan, namely the 2035 Wichita Hunter Grove concept map. It identifies the site as appropriate for residential and employment mix. So, if there are going to be commercial uses, they will likely have negative or limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual blight, and odor. And the residential area is a little bit farther, it's at least 2 blocks away from what they're proposing here. And this is along West Douglas Avenue, which is a very busy corridor. The requested zoning aligns with the goals of the Wichita Places for People plan. The area is identified as something called a community core, which is designed to accommodate and balance multiple nodes of transportation to serve a broader range of goods and services. So there's ample on-street. And every time in that area, there's ample on-street parking within the Delano commercial district in that area. The Places for People plan also outlines several strategies to help guide the community in their actions for walkable places. So strategy 1 within the Places for People plan is to create walkable destinations that support the various neighborhood environments in the established central area. And so what we're looking at here is, they're not really modifying the existing footprint, they're maintaining the walkability as well as its balance with automobiles and bicycles, sorry. Strategy 3 of the Places for People plan aims to improve the economic stability of commercial and service uses and the markets necessary to support them. And so by eliminating the site's parking requirements and setback requirements, they're able to use that space for business rather than parking. And then strategy 6 is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. It's to be, like I mentioned earlier, it's being redeveloped without significantly modifying its existing footprint, and it's maintaining the block's character, maintaining the harmonious development of the community. The Delano neighborhood plan identifies the subject site as appropriate for mixed use. So staff is recommending approval for this application, and this is based on the golden rules. I won't go through all of them, they're all listed in your staff report. At the time that I prepared the staff report, I did not receive any public comment. One gentleman has reached out to me and just for a copy of the report before it was sent for MAPC, but I have not received any additional comment. So the site photos are listed on, well, they have a site plan, which is not required for zoning changes, but they were gracious enough to give that to us. And then site photos are on page 11 of your staff report. And with that, I will stand for questions. And the agent for the applicant is also here to answer any questions that I may.
Any questions or comments from staff?
Bring more beer to Delano, I'm all about.
If it's just that spot next to Picasso's, I don't see an issue. I mean, I'm all for it. Picasso's is good food. Be cool to see a microbrewery there.
Well, and you also said that if it were being built today, it would not be within the confines of LC, correct?
Correct. So it's not a permitted use within LC, and then the LC has its own setback requirements. Yeah, basically what I imagine is that there was a blanket overlay over the Delano district, and so it was grandfathered in. And so once they do the redevelopment, that is triggering either you do a variance or you modify the building or you change the zoning.
Questions, comments from public? Vincent?
Here it comes.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Line Joe, behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy. Vince Hancock, in this particular hat, I'm aware, is on behalf of Delano United. I'm the vice president. For those not familiar, Delano United is where the businesses, the clergy, and the residents get together and find out what's good for our neighborhood. This is good for our neighborhood. For those of you not somewhat familiar with the area, this used to be the former Visual Fusion, it's right next to Picasso's. And Christina hit the nail on the head. We have a ton of businesses right up next to the sidewalk. Planner geek speak, that's called zero setback. We have a ton of them up and down the streets, and we've asked not once, not twice, at least 3 times to say, can we work together with the planning department and do a, with the business owner signing off on it, let's just do a whole bunch of bulk rezone of everybody who's right smack dab on Douglas. Let's move them all over to the Central Business District with their buy-in. If they say, oh no, that's got a little hidden catchy for me, I don't want to do that, that's fine. But we've been asking for this, oh, I don't know, since 2001. So we think it's a good idea. One last thing is I just want to make sure that you're familiar with There are two extremely similar terms that have a key difference. If you hear about DDRC, the Delano Design Review Committee, that is city staff. Not a single member of them, to our knowledge, live and or work in the Delano area. If you hear about the Delano Design Advisory Committee, 2 members of Delano United are represented on there. So we just want to make sure that you are fully equipped and educated so that you guys can make your decisions. But this is exactly why we did the Delano plan. And we want to make sure that all those businesses have a chance to be on equal footing, which, as you saw from Paul earlier, within the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to remodel all of West Douglas, so that those businesses have the exact same economic opportunities. So I'm happy to be speaking for something because it's good for everybody. And that's one of the whole points of Delano United, is to flood everybody's boats. Any questions?
I'll make one brief comment. I met with Scott Wadle last week about the bulk zoning. You know, I've talked about this, something I'm very passionate about. I will have something presented by this summer in terms of how we can move forward on it. I think it's needed, especially when we're looking at, I think every single zoning case that's come before this body, with maybe the exception of one, has been passed. So for the applicant, District 4 loves development. District 4 wants to encourage it as well. And there may be some parts of the city that vote down zoning cases as much. This body doesn't. And we see it as integral parts of moving our city forward. And so I would love, by the end of the summer, to see how and when we can move the Zolk voting forward in this area, because I think it's fitting. And this has been, I think, 4 applications in Delano over the course of the past probably 4 years that have all done.
That's just on the 67213 side, because we have the joy of being spread amongst 2 council districts.
Correct.
The exact same thing happens on the other side. And I haven't heard anybody yet who thinks that it's a terrible idea.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate the comments and feedback. Moving on to the offer renovations. Oh, sorry, I'm moving on too fast. All right, is there a motion to approve based on the information available? On favor? All opposed? Now, moving on to offer renovations with Director of Libraries, Jimmy Nix. Present. Okay. No show. Moving along to the board agenda, updates, issues, and reports from council member.
Hello. I will run through just a few things. First off, I'm sorry for being a few minutes late. I went to the house and I want to make sure to get my property tax evaluation notice before I came here today. A lot of you probably will be getting them today. My home increased by 17.4%. The rental home that I own next door increased by 22.9% in appraisal. And so there's going to be a lot of people, I think, very angry, especially, I also live in Delano too. Granted, I love the growth of Delano, but there are challenges with the two. So when you get home, I'd be interested to see also what your increase of property tax valuation. The appraiser said that it was going to be an average of 9%, but I think mine's skewing that pretty heavily one way right now. 14.3, yeah, pretty significant increases. So I imagine there'll be a lot of appeals this year. The state of Kansas is currently, I don't know if there's been any update since Friday, so there could be, is debate or debating how they're gonna reformat property tax caps. The House seems to have a compromise. It's in here real fast. It would basically be, it would get rid of revenue neutral, increasing the revenue neutral rate if a county, or would completely get rid of revenue neutral, but it would cap evaluations at inflation plus new growth for community. And so, you know, you're looking at maybe in Wichita, 5% or 6% cap increase. If cities didn't increase past that, there would be a state fund of up to $60 million that would be proportionally weighted across the community for cities to apply for to also get revenue. And so that's probably the compromise that'll probably pass. It'll be interesting to see if it's implemented in June, because then that will determine our budget process in August as well. So I'll keep you updated on that. We should have more updates in April because that's past turnaround. So I'll keep you updated. March 14th, or not March 14th, March 4th, tomorrow. The city council, the three big things that we're hearing that may get headlines that you may have heard about already. The MAC operating agreement, which is our operating agreement with the Multi-Agency Center Board, Inc. Incorporated, or whatever their new name is. They're in the process of getting a new name. So it'll be the operating agreement. The city will turn over on April 1st, complete operations of our multi-agency center to a nonprofit entity. The city will be the landlord for Park Elementary. That we're not good at being in the work of nonprofits, and to let a nonprofit lead it, but provide the space for them to do it. The city will have, right now it's one board member, it's the mayor that will sit on the board of 7 for the MAC. We're trying to debate whether we're adding another one. So there might be 2 council or 2 individuals from the city on the MAC Inc. board. In addition, we're hearing the CID for we're hearing the option to hold a public hearing for the CID for Old Town parking. And so that was the agreement that if Old Town could implement a CID for the district, then they would not have the metered parking that you see downtown or that you would see downtown. So we'll be setting a public hearing for that. The actual hearing will be, I believe, the subsequent week. And then probably one of the more controversial items is Crown Uptown. The current owner of Crown Uptown has submitted a demolition permit for the building. The historic preservation staffer, which is actually Christina, who just was presenting a second ago, has the ability to put a 30-day hold on the demolition permit. So that would be March 7th. They could move forward with demolitions by the end of this week. What city staff is proposing is a 180-day hold that the city could then put on top of that 30-day period for then theoretically people to collect the history of it or have a movement to try to put it on the historical registry. I'm struggling with the decision. I'll mention the comments from the bench tomorrow. I'm a strong believer in property rights. The Crown Uptown is currently not on any registry that would save it. I feel very weary about establishing a precedent in which the city, not at the will of the property owner, could establish a property as a historic property and then prevent the demolition of that property. My house is older currently than the Crown Uptown. And so I don't necessarily want an application to add my house to the registry and then prevent what I can do with my property as well. So we'll have a debate. I have plenty of questions for city staff tomorrow, but that's one thing I'm struggling with. It is, I think, a very important piece of Wichita's history. I want the preservation of the building. But I just don't know if government should be the strong arm to do it. I talked to my historical preservation board appointee about in the future, proactively trying to add buildings to the registry with the consent of the owner. So we don't get in this situation in the future. The Crown Uptown had been owned by people previously that wanted to put on the registry. They just never went through the entire process. If they would have went through the process, then the owner would have purchased the process or property knowing it was on the historical registry. And then I think you would have, and then it wouldn't be able to be demolished. So that conversation will be happening tomorrow. That's probably the most controversial item and probably what I'm getting the most emails about as well. I briefly mentioned it at the last DAB that we had. Vincent, I still owe you a call. I talked to Christopher because I always never know who's the neighborhood association president at what time. So I still owe you a call. I'll be presenting to the Delano Business Association, and I need to do Delano United on Thursday about the possibility of a common consumption area along Douglas from the river to Seneca, give or take some. We're still trying to figure out what the boundaries of that would be exactly. Where we're encouraging, one, the historical nature of Delano, but also making sure that citizens are responsible with common consumption. Common consumption would be that somebody can take a beer from WBC, they could walk to the stadium, they could walk along the sidewalk, it'd be area. What I'm modeling after is Topeka. Topeka has 3 common consumption areas. They started with one in April of this year, and it was so successful they've added 2 more. They also have a little bit stricter limitations where the common consumption would end at midnight. So you're not going to have people partying until 2 a.m. on the streets. It theoretically pushes people from Delano into Old Town at that point, or to go there too. They also have markers on all the entries of the streets and the exits of the streets, so you know when you're entering the area. You also can't bring alcohol. You have to purchase it from one of the providers there. And then you have to walk out with like a plastic cup that's branded from, let's say it's Woodshop Brewing Company or Picasso's, where you know you got it from. So I have a few more meetings. I'm going to present to the Business Association to get their feedback on it on Thursday at 2:00, if anybody's interested in going. I've talked to WBC, talked to the Monarch. I've talked to a couple other businesses along there, and I haven't heard opposition. I've only heard support of it so far. And so if you do know of anybody in opposition, I also want to hear from that as well. So that's kind of everything. Any questions? Wally?
Yeah, I got a comment on appraisal.
Okay.
If you take 81 Speedway, it's about 38 acres up there. In the Kansas drag strip, about 28 acres. The tax on 81 Speedway is like $9,000. The drag strip was appraised and their taxes are $54,000. And they basically have the same amount of facilities and whatever, and they opposed it, and the commissioner just stuck with it. I mean, that's kind of useless when there's that much difference. And nobody will do anything about it. It's a joke to go.
Well, I think so you can appeal to the county, obviously. The state's trying to figure out how we handle property tax valuation in the future because of cases like that. Because it's based on an appraisal, you have to go through the appeal process. So that's a county state issue. The city has nothing to do with it. We just levy the mill levy based on the appraisal. But we don't have any jurisdiction or ability to determine appraisals.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you're aware of it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
There's big discrepancies.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, anything else?
For that common consumption area that you mentioned, there would need to be like an increase of like public trash to throw away now.
Yeah, there would be other things you'd have to, you'd have public receptacles. I've talked to the chief about it initially, just to get his feedback. I think he's more comfortable with the restrictions Topeka has. He just doesn't want it to become the Wild West and 2 a.m. and people bringing in what they want. And so there are probably gonna be adaptations to it.
Would that be a joint effort, city and sheriff, or?
Probably it'd just be WPD. Okay. They're the only ones that patrol town. So. Okay. Back to you, Alex.
All right, guys, you guys come out tonight, rock chalk, we're gonna determine if we actually go far or not, it's Houston, so. But is there a motion to adjourn? Wally, Dave, second, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, guys. Good night.